Nicole and my husband Tim, and I have been sharing my journey with my prescribed Cannabis CBD oil, and I am now 2 months into using Cannabis for chronic pain, which is secondary to having a near fatal accident. A semi truck hit me on December 15th, 2010, at 65 miles per hour, and I have been, other than these past 2 months, I was free of pain medicine for 6.5 years. I had negative side effects from both opioids, which there's now the opioid crisis and epidemic that's widely being discussed in the United States. And I also suffered from stomach bleeding secondary to NSAIDs, like Motrin. So the past month, I continued to use the 1-to-20 mixture, and I saw no negative side effects from that, no psychoactive high from the Cannabis 1-to-20 mixture. However, I had learned that in order to get a more restful sleep, there was an option of increasing the THC. And Cannabis has this mixture. It's the Cannabis 10-to-10. So it's 10 units of THC to 10 units of CBD. So I had an appointment with my pain specialist yesterday, and I had mentioned it to her. And the THC is supposed to also give you better control for both pain and inflammation, which are two things that I contend with. So the 1-to-20 mixture wasn't taking away my pain or the inflammation totally. So this was an option. So the plan was to do, I was doing 3 1 milliliter 1-to-20 mixtures. So the plan was to then switch it to 2 doses of the 1-to-20 mixture in the morning and the afternoon, and then do a smaller dose. Instead of 1 milliliter of the 1-to-20 mixture, do a 0.5 milliliter. So that goes to only there. So it's not a large dose. Do a 0.5 milliliter of the 10-to-10 mixture. So that's what I did last night. And I want to share my experience because it was crazy. It was awful. I have not had any alcohol or anything that alters my mind since the night that I conceived my son. I had 1 cocktail, and that was back in 2012. So I have been sober from anything that alters my mind for a good amount of time now. And THC has psychoactive effects, as do other medications that you can be prescribed, like an antidepressant. It can have those effects on the brain. So anyway, I took this. I ate around the time that I took it, and about 30 minutes to an hour after taking 0.5 milliliters of this, probably around 11:30 p.m., I was laying down with Jack and Caitlin, my 2 little ones, and my head and my neck started to feel so heavy, and everything, like my full face, went numb and tingly. And if I lay in an area, it would increase, it would intensify. And if I laid down, it would intensify. And I woke Tim up, and I was like, Tim, I'm not liking the way I am feeling. And then I started to panic some, but it's so weird. Like, it almost felt like a panic attack, but I didn't feel like I was panicking because my body felt numb. Really, really scary feeling for me. And so I was like, Tim, look up and see if there are effects like this from this. And I hadn't read, here's one lesson learned, I hadn't read the pamphlet. Would you mind grabbing that really quick? I didn't read the pamphlet of potential side effects. So as a patient, as a doctor, it's important to read before you take your medicine potential side effects, because it's always good to know ahead of time what could potentially happen, and then what you should do as a patient if that does happen. So let me see if I can. So I don't take any other medicine, so I knew it wasn't a drug interaction, which is something that you still have to be considerate of with medical cannabis. Potential side effects: dizziness, drowsiness, feeling faint or lightheaded, fatigue, impaired memory and disturbances in attention, concentration, and ability to think and make decisions, disorientation, confusion, feeling drunk, feeling abnormal or having abnormal thoughts, feeling too high, feelings of unreality, feeling an extreme slowing of time, suspiciousness, nervousness, episodes of anxiety resembling a panic attack, paranoia, loss of contact with reality, hallucinations, seeing or hearing things that do not exist, impairments in motor skills and perception, altered bodily perceptions, loss of full control of bodily movements, falls, low blood pressure, fast heartbeat. So what I felt, so he's reading this to me and I'm like, this is exactly what's happening to me. I didn't feel drunk. When I used to drink alcohol, I actually enjoyed it, unless I drank too much and then I suffered the consequences of that. But it didn't feel drunk to me. The slowing of time. I remember I was watching Tim as he's looking things up and I'm like, why isn't he moving faster? So that was my issue, not his this time. The anxiety, I started to get anxious and I'm watching my kids sleeping and I'm like, what am I going to do? I didn't want to wake them up, which we ended up getting them in the car and going to the ER.
And two, when she mentioned that her anxiety was, I could tell because she mentioned something about her heart beating faster, and I could tell with her as she became more full of anxiety, you could tell because her speech increased.
Yeah, and that wasn't perceived by me. I didn't perceive an increased rate of speed, but I was getting worried. And one thing that he had read, where did you read that about the time that it could take for?
It was on that site on the internet.
So Tim looked on another website, and one thing that he had read to me was that the full effect could take about 4 hours for the peak performance of the medicine. So that terrified me because I was like, I was feeling so terrible. And I was like, if it gets any worse than that, like, I don't think I could have taken it. It was such an awful experience. So, and I also, it talks about falls. I didn't feel safe standing up by myself because I wasn't sure if I was going to fall. So we got in the car. Tim got me into the car first, and then he brought Jack in and then Caitlin in, and he drove me to the ER, which is only 5 minutes away from here, thankfully. And he had already put me in touch. I talked to a nurse and the doctor on the phone, and rightfully the doctor's like, I can't diagnose you over the phone. And sometimes this is an effective cannabis and can't really tell how long it'll take to wear off because everybody's individual, and that's totally true. So we went up to the ER. Thankfully, there was no wait. And I shared what had happened and why I take this medicine and the response. And they ended up checking my electrolytes, which all came back in a normal range. And the doctor, he's from Jamaica. And so he had shared that he had seen this in the past in Jamaica, similar effects. So it was nice to know that it wasn't uncommon to him. What's wrong? What's wrong? Yeah, itch. And then he ordered for me to get 3 bags of IV fluids to help flush it out of my system. So it took about 2 hours, and I need that soap. And it took about 2 hours, and I still wasn't 100%. Even into today, I didn't feel like myself until about an hour ago. I didn't take any CBD oil today because, one, I was kind of scared to do that. I also sent out a message to Cannabis representative who I've been talking to as I've taken this as a medicine. And I heard back from the Cannabis representative with really useful information. So if you can give me the computer, I'd like to read. Calm down. No, give that to her. Okay. We're having a little bit of a brawl with our kids. Jack, if you behave, you get a chocolate smoothie. Okay. So what he said. Okay. So what Canamed shared was what I wrote. I said, hi, Canamed. So I've been sharing about my experiences with 1 to 20 CBD oil, and last night I tried the 10 to 10 mixture per my doctor's direction. I took 0.5 milliliter and had a crazy reaction to it. My head and neck felt very heavy. My face and head went numb and tingling, and I started to panic, but I felt numb. I went to the ER, and they gave me 3 bags of IV fluids, and I kept drinking water due to severe dry mouth. My electrolytes all came back in the normal range, so there were no disturbances there. I'm thinking that the amount of THC in the 0.5 milliliters was still too much for me. Any thoughts or feedback? I have to talk to my doctor, and I'm still feeling a bit off. I haven't taken any oil today. After the 3 bags of IV fluids, I did end up having a very deep sleep, which is what I was hoping for with this 10 to 10 mixture. The effects that I felt occurred 30 minutes to an hour after taking it, and I did eat around the time that I took the dose. So what they replied was, hi, Nicole. I really like Canamed. I really like talking with them. They said, oh, wow, I am so sorry that you had to go through all of that just for a good night's sleep. We track any adverse reactions and haven't had any reports of anything like what you have experienced. I discussed with our team, and they surmised that there are few likely reasons why you reacted that way, but we can't say with 100% certainty. This is part of what I thought too. They first said you might have taken too much. Oh, wait, no, go back. First, they said you could have a sensitivity to THC, and I do have a sensitive system. As I shared, I react poorly to opioids. I react poorly to NSAIDs. And so being sensitive to THC, that wouldn't be surprising to me. So they said you could have a sensitivity to THC, which would explain some of your almost allergic-like reactions. And then they stated you may have taken too much. If you are THC naive, which I believe you are, starting with 0.1 milliliter and titrating up over a few days is recommended. So that's super helpful information. They also shared that I may have been dehydrated, which exacerbated the psychoactive effects of the THC, which could possibly be part of that. Or you might have another medication that is contraindicated. However, I'm not taking any other medication at this time. There are very few that do, but it's always a possibility if you are on other medications, which is really important consideration in regards to another thing that I experienced at the hospital. Please stop, Jack. I hope I have given you some useful info and that you're feeling better. It sounds like you've been making some great progress, which I have, and I hope that you can continue to do so. Please feel free to send any other feedback or questions, and we'll do our best to give you answers. All the best. So I greatly appreciate it. Jack, please, or you're not going to get any treat tonight.
Nicole, why would being dehydrated
Jack Timothy
have, and I guess, help like exacerbate the symptoms of the way you're feeling?
I mean, taking any medication when you haven't had enough to drink or to eat can have heightened effects. So
okay, I didn't know about the water. I mean, I knew about the food because a lot of medications say like, you know, some take with food.
Right, and
I've not known that about that.
And on my Canamed, this is the 10 to 10. It is labeled and it says that it may cause drowsiness. Alcohol may intensify this effect. use care when operating a car or dangerous machinery. And so the IV fluids definitely helped. That's what I had told Tim they probably would do for me. When they were running the IV fluids, the ER doctor, now I'm going to talk about a couple things. Since I went to medical school, I graduated medical school, I'm a doctor and I'm a patient. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I saw that are important because it's just the right thing to do. So when I was having the fluids rant, Jack, can you please stop kicking the ball in the house? Jack. So, Jack, if you can behave, you'll get a chocolate smoothie. Okay? Jack. Jack, it's time to be a big boy. So, one of the things that was asked of me when they were running the IV fluids is if I wanted lorazepam for the anxiety. And I shared with the ER doctor that I did not want to take an anxiolytic because I was concerned of additional effects combined with the cannabis. And I was already having issues with the THC. Can you please go take him for a quick walk? So, actually, no. Can you stay here for a couple minutes and you behave, Jack? Because I want you to stay here with me if you don't mind. So, I had shared that I didn't want to take an anxiolytic. And this ER doctor, he said, well, lorazepam isn't an anxiolytic. It'll just make you feel better. And I'm sorry, but yes, lorazepam, also known as Ativan, is an anxiolytic, and it is in the class of benzodiazepines. And I also researched again today, and it shared that cannabis and THC, if you take an anxiolytic, it can actually intensify the effects that you're already feeling. So thank God I chose not to take lorazepam. The second thing comes down to doctor-patient relationships and professionalism within medicine. So my husband likes to converse with people and be friendly, and so he's having a conversation with this doctor. And as a proud dad, this doctor pulled up a YouTube video of his daughter, who happened to be in a Miss Jamaica competition, strutting around in a two-piece bikini during my visit to the ER and to a married man. And so that I found very unprofessional as a doctor and as a patient, and not appropriate either. So that is a lesson to learn in all of that. I shared today on Facebook about my experience, and let me go to that post. And there were just a couple things that I wanted to address. Can you take him for a quick walk now? Yeah, you can go with Daddy. Yeah, go on. You're welcome. Mama's almost done. Okay, you can take it. Okay, so there were just a couple comments on my Facebook page, and I just wanted to address those. So one of my friends stated that that's why she only takes CBD oil with 0% THC. And I shared that the THC component is actually what is attributed to reduction in both pain and inflammation. And I personally, because it's legal here in Grand Cayman, Cayman Islands, I personally would like to at least take the 1-to-20 mixture, which gave me no negative side effects. And then I also shared that the higher THC is also helpful for a deeper sleep, but it appeared to be too much for me at even a small 0.5 milliliter dose. And I also shared that this is why I believe that a doctor should be on board with those taking medical cannabis, because it still is a medicine. And my friend shared that what she is taking helps her, and I think that that's wonderful. And I am still a huge proponent of medical cannabis and CBD oil, despite my experience yesterday, which you can have And I have had negative experiences with other medicines. So I'm not anti taking this. I'm going to continue taking CBD oil, just going to make some alterations as Cannabis suggested. And I will talk to my pain doctor. I share that suffering sucks and relief is a gift. I wish I would have been able to use medical cannabis a lot sooner, and I didn't suffer in pain every single day for 7.5 years. It is a medicine though, and it does need to be used with caution and responsibility. For me, that's the lesson learned in all of this. There are considerations. You do have to think about interactions, possible drug interactions with other drugs. And another friend of mine shared that she was so happy that I was okay. Unfortunately, we have to find the right mix that works for us. And I completely agree with that. Just like any medicine, everything in medicine, when I was a personal trainer, I tailored my programs to my clients. And that's the same thing as a doctor, tailoring your treatment specifically to their patient. And the other thing that's important with making your doctor aware of if you're taking a CBD product is the fact that they know, or they should know, your past medical history, what medications that you're taking. And if there is an adverse effect, you want to be completely open and honest with what you're taking so that you're looking out for your own well-being. And another friend of mine who has contended with cancer, she shared that she's on 0.5 milliliters of the 10-10, and she is getting good sleep. And she asked, how do we know which is the right dose for us? I am pretty reactive and sensitive. And again, that comes down to titrating up, as Cannabis said, for me, going even lower down to, because I tolerated the 0.5 milliliter initial dose with the 1-20 mixture, but there's less THC in there. And with the 10-10 mixture, there's more THC, which is what is responsible for the psychoactive high effect. And I didn't feel high. Like, there was no good feeling to what I experienced yesterday. It was, I don't ever want to experience that again. But yes, definitely something to consider is what dose you're starting at. And you should be working with, and my friend who takes it, who has cancer, she is a patient here and it's legal here in Grand Cayman. So yeah, I wanted to share my experiences and share my journey, continue to share my journey with this. I'll continue to share my next journey. I'll hop back on at 3 months post CBD use, and hopefully it continues to serve other people well. And hopefully my vulnerability and sharing and the lessons that I'm sharing along my journey will continue to help serve others too. So thank you for listening, and I will be back with my husband.